Hey guys, it's Nathan. In this video, we're going to be talking about how to build a basic type of bot called a swarm bot. We're going to be using the template from the last video, so if you don't really remember how that works, you should go watch the video again before watching this one. Before we get into writing the bot, let's talk a little bit about how the swarm bot works. What the swarm bot does is it masses a bunch of units in one place and then uses the strength and numbers provided by all those units to overrun the enemy. What that means is that our strategy is going to work like this. We're going to build a bunch of units, we're going to rally them all to the same place, and then at a certain turn, let's say turn 500 or so, we're going to have all those units charge the enemy headquarters, destroying anything in the way, and hopefully winning the game for us. It turns out that this strategy is pretty effective. In real-time strategy games, it's called a timing attack. And it's pretty simple to understand and implement too, so it's a great starting point if you're trying to write a bot for the first time. So let's jump into writing the bot. Remember from the template video that if we want to modify the behavior of a specific robot, we need to change the execute function of the class corresponding to that robot. For our strategy to work, what we're going to do is we're going to mass a bunch of soldiers, and then at a certain turn, all the soldiers are going to charge the enemy headquarters together. So, to do that, we need to have our headquarters build beavers. Then we need our beavers to build barracks. Then we need our barracks to build soldiers. The soldiers themselves will have to coordinate their attack, but that will be covered in a different video because that covers the messaging system. For right now, we're just going to focus on building things. So, as I said before, the headquarters is going to build a beaver, and the beaver is going to build a barracks, and the barracks is going to build a soldier. So we need to modify these three execute functions. Let's start with the headquarters. If you don't know where anything is, or you don't know the method that you need to use to accomplish something, like building a unit, you can look in battle code, doc, battle code, common, and this is the documentation for the methods that you'll need to use. Most of what you want is going to be in robot controller, so let's open that up. No, that's not right. I want to open it in Chrome. So, you may recall from last lecture that if I want to spawn a unit, there's a method rc.spawn, which takes in a direction and a robot type, and will spawn for you. We'll spawn that robot type for you in the given direction. We know we want to spawn a beaver, and the direction we're going to use is going to be given to us by one of the methods that Alex wrote, which is getSpawnDirection. What this does, if you may recall, is takes in a type of robot and returns a valid direction that you can spawn that robot in. So that's great. Now we're spawning beavers. But remember, beavers cost ore. So before we do that, we need to make sure that we have enough ore to spawn the beaver. So how do we check how much ore we have? Well, we can look in the robot controller methods, and we can see getTeamOre does what we want. Let's say if the ore is greater than 100, we'll spawn a beaver. There's also one more thing we need to do. Every time a robot takes an action, it will get some movement delay. So we need to make sure that the core is actually ready to perform the action that we want to. There are two methods, isCoreReady and isWeaponReady. Since we're building something, we need to make sure that the core is ready. IsWeaponReady, by the way, is used before attacking. So let's run this and make sure it works. Okay, it looks like there are a lot of exceptions. and it says they're null pointer exceptions. So what that means is that rc.spawn is being passed. It says right here that the null pointer exception is occurring in spawn. So one of these parameters is null, and it's probably this one, because this is definitely not null. So get spawn direction is returning null. And if you look at the method, it returns null if there's no direction that we can spawn the robot we want to in. So that means if the HQ is surrounded, for instance, then we're trying to spawn a robot and we just can't. So let's fix that. I really wish I had code completion, like in Eclipse, but I don't. So you'll just have to bear with me. So we need to check if the new direction is not null, and if it is, we can spawn a robot in that direction. So this should work the way we want it to. The HQ will spawn beavers for us until it's surrounded and can't spawn anymore. So looking at this, it looks like it does exactly what we want it to. Great. Let's move on to the beaver class. Remember that the beaver does not only have to build barracks, it also has to mine the ore that we need to build the barracks and then build the soldiers. So let's say if our ore is less than 500, then the beaver will try and mine. Otherwise, it will try and build a barracks. Oh yeah, we need to check whether the core is ready. Because if it has movement delay, we can't do anything. Let's start with the mining code. We can look in the robot controller documentation again, and we can see that rc.mine will do what we want. This is a bit of a problem though. After we've mined this square, the square won't have any ore on it, so mining it again won't help us. So we need to make sure that the square actually has something on it for us to mine. So sense ore will return the amount of ore at the location we're at. Sense ore takes in a map location. And if there's no ore on the square, let's have it move toward, let's say, the enemy HQ. How do we move toward the enemy HQ? Move takes in a direction. So we can use Alex's method, getMoveDir, which, given a location, gives you a direction to get toward that location. So what our beavers will do is mine if there's ore on the square, and otherwise they'll move toward the enemy HQ in search of more ore. Moving toward the enemy HQ isn't a great idea in general, but for now it's the simplest, so let's keep it that way. We can change it later if we like. Now we need to handle the building barracks part. This part's easier. It's actually very similar to rc.spawn, but it's rc.build. We'll call getBuildDirection instead of getSpawnDirection. Great, so that should handle the barracks. Again, let's test this out and make sure it works the way we want it to. So our robots are moving, and they're building barracks. That's really cool. Anyway, the last thing we need to do is have our barracks build soldiers. So, as before, we can use rc.spawn, In fact, let's just copy these 4 lines and modify them a bit. Instead of beaver, we want soldier. Again, we have to check if we have enough ore to do it, and if the core is ready. So if we have enough ore, and if the core is ready, we'll spawn a soldier. So the barracks is which is great. That's exactly what we wanted. There are a couple issues with the code that we have right now. For instance, it spawns a lot of beavers, and it should be using the resources to spawn soldiers. But we get some soldiers spawned, and the code works more or less the way we wanted it to. So we'll focus on tidying up this code next time, and also controlling the soldiers so that they move in the swarm-like fashion that we want them to, and eventually destroy the enemy headquarters. So I'll see you next time.